Having a location as a starting point is really useful when it comes to tracing a person's history. In this case, of course, we knew we needed to focus on Hyde Park in London and its surrounding areas. A search through the National Archives provided us with our first clues. However, it wasn't easy, but we knew we had to persevere. When we began investigating this case, we were assuming that the spirit connected to the doll had been born in 1946. However, when historical records didn't match up, we realised that this date may be significant for another reason. When we searched local death records, we found a Peggy Hines who died that very year just 2 miles from Hyde Park. This could be our Peggy. But our story begins a little earlier than this. In Lambeth in 1878, just 2 miles from Hyde Park, a girl named Ada Maud was born. She would go on to marry Alfred Hines and continue to live in Lambeth, close to the docks, and have 4 healthy children. It's not clear what happened to Ada following the birth of her children, but the 1901 census shows us that by that time she was living with her brother George and his family. By November 5, 1908, her name appears on the admission records for Newington Workhouse in London. Built in 1852, Newington was an imposing building on the Old Westmoreland Road, and it housed up to 200 inmates, including at one time future star of the stage and screen Charlie Chaplin and his mother. Ada spent over 15 years in the workhouse, and in November 1923 she was admitted to the workhouse infirmary. There was no official reason given on her records. However, in March 1924, just 5 months later, Ada gave birth to a daughter. She named her Peggy. On the birth records, the mother's surname is given as Neville. It would not be surprising, as Peggy was born, as it seems, out of wedlock, for Ada to give an assumed name. What is interesting, however, is that a check of the workhouse staff records for the time shows a Joseph Neville, aged 45, working as the bathman in the infirmary. What's even more interesting is that Joseph Neville's place of birth is listed as the borough of Lambeth, the very same area Ada lived all her life until entering the workhouse in 1908. Could it be that Joseph Neville and Ada Hines knew each other? Maybe Ada left her husband and children and entered the workhouse to be with him. Was he Peggy's father? And if so, are we dealing with a hopelessly romantic story? Or were the circumstances around Ada's pregnancy while at the workhouse altogether more sinister? It would certainly help us understand why many people believe Peggy has a connection to institutions and a defiance towards authority. There are no further records to be found for Ada or Peggy until Peggy's death in 1946, aged just 22. At that time it appears she was living in Fulham, just 2 miles from Hyde Park. Why did Peggy apparently give us this location? Maybe it was a favourite spot of hers, or maybe it's where she died.